Well, the fourth annual Mental Health Symposium is taking place in Montreal. The Tifereth, Beth, David, Jerusalem congregation has been doing this now. It's the fourth annual, May 6th to 9th. Dr. Rachel Goodman, who's the co-chair with Yair Myers, is with me, and Dr. Howard Margulies, one of the keynote speakers, an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry at McGill University. And welcome both. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
So it's great to have both of you. I go back with both of you. Rachel, I go to TBDJ with you, although I haven't been there as frequent during COVID times, but I'm there in spirit. And of course, Dr. Margulies and I used to be neighbors. So we used to talk in the garage all the time. So it's good to be reconnected with you again. So right now, we're doing this event, Rachel. Hard to believe that it's the fourth event and the third time we've had to do this virtually, but it works. It's a good format.
Yes, I will just mildly correct. The dates are May 5th to 8th because we actually start on Thursday.
Oh, right. Correct. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, so it's very exciting. We did start our first year doing this in person and locally, just in Montreal. I shouldn't say just, Montreal is very important, and we had a very big showing of people attending. But once COVID hit and we had to shift over to doing this virtually, the one big benefit was that we were able to spread this to other communities across North America. And we've had interest from places across Canada and the United States, 50 synagogues and high schools that have been participating and will participate again this year.
So the topic, the theme is mental health. For Mental Health Week is depression through the lifespan. Dr. Margulies, what are some of the things you're going to talk about when you do your address on the Thursday evening, May the 5th?
Yeah, so on Thursday evening, May the 5th, some of the things you'll hear me talk about are how depression really is a very important illness, and that it's both over-treated in that some people are getting treatment who probably don't require treatment because they don't truly have depression, but at the same time it's being undertreated, and that's our bigger concern. And that there's many folks who are out there who are unfortunately, suffering, who could benefit from good treatments that we have available to them. I'll describe what depression is. I'll talk about risk factors for depression. We'll look as well at how depression differs in, say, teenagers versus late life depression. We'll talk about different good treatments for depression, and what I call the three pillars of treatment, which are really the pharmacotherapy or the medication treatment, psychotherapy, and the different kinds of psychotherapy, and also exercise therapy. So we'll talk about all those things. I'll also mention briefly a little bit about the impact on COVID-19 and depression. The thing about depression throughout the lifespan is it's such a broad topic that any one of the topics that I'm talking about in any one of the slides could be an hour-long presentation by itself. So this is really going to be a top-level overview. And I hope that the audience will be stimulated to learn more about depression from this presentation.
Yes, I'm sure they will. And Rachel, Dr. Goodman, why don't you tell us a little bit of what's going to happen throughout the weekend? You've got a full lineup.
We do. So Thursday evening, Dr. Margulies is our keynote speaker. We're very lucky to have him. We also have some other speakers that evening. Rabbi Freundlich, who is the rabbi of TBDJ, who will be talking about depression and mental health from a Jewish perspective. And we have, once again, Barbara Victor, who is the clinical chief officer of OMETS, our community agency here, who is retiring. So we're very lucky to have her for our last time this year. And we also have an individual with lived experience who has struggled with depression. So that's Thursday night. Friday morning is a special teen mental health workshop for high school students, and we've connected with several high schools across North America. Last year, we had over 1,000 high school students participate online at the same time, and we hope to do the same. And then on Sunday morning, we have two speakers. One his name is Hillel Fuld. He lives in Israel. He is a top tech influencer and has also himself struggled with depression and anxiety. And he'll be talking about himself, his own experience, and how technology can be used with treating mental health and helping support mental health. And then we have Dr. Norman Blumenthal, who was our speaker last year and has agreed to come back to talk about depression from a clinical perspective, kind of on a more focused basis, rather than this top overview of what Dr. Margulies will be sharing with us on Thursday.
So a full weekend. Now, Dr. Margulies, I know in the past couple of years, we've heard so much about COVID, but unfortunately, hard to believe, COVID is still with us. It's rampant in our community right now and probably still will be when we have this seminar. Tell me, how has COVID impacted depression on people? I mean, it's done. I mean, obviously people are out and about now, probably taking more of a risk, you know, doing things like even going to a Passover Seder. You're kind of making a judgment call, but there was times when everyone was shut in, and this has affected people young and old, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it affects different people differently. So, you know, being shut in for some people is actually a good thing. If you suffer from anxiety and you don't have to be out there, that's actually easier for you.
Right.
So none of these experiences are by themselves either a good or a bad experience. It's how the individual responds to those experiences. But overall, the WHO, World Health Organization, has estimated that there's been an increase worldwide of about 25% in depression and anxiety disorders in the general population. However, that was in the first year of the pandemic. We actually don't know the data later on in the pandemic, because now we've adapted to living with the pandemic. And so those numbers may be coming down actually, and that remains to be seen what happens. We know from trauma research, for example, that after trauma comes resilience. And so we know that the human being is a very resilient being in general. So yes, there's been an increase in general, but not for everyone. And it depends, it's a much more nuanced conversation to better understand the impact of COVID-19 and depression. But we can specifically state that there has been a specific impact on youth and on teens when it comes to potentially increasing rates of depression. And that is because of COVID. And that's probably related to the isolation and less social interaction. We think that that's an important factor. And also potentially an increase in the use of social media as a way of youth interacting, which actually has maybe if we use that too much of it, has a negative impact on influencing depression. So it's quite a complex topic.
So, you know, Dr. Margulies talking, you know, as a psychiatrist working at the hospital now, Dr. Goodman, you're in private practice. So how have you seen depression evolve over the last 2+ years of the pandemic with your clientele?
First, let me say, as a psychologist, I've never worked more in my entire life. You know, there's good and bad associated with that. I'm happy to be working and feel fortunate to have a job, unlike some other people who sadly have lost their jobs, but it's been enormous, exponential. And I would say more than the 25%. Every therapist that I know has a huge waiting list. And, you know, in Montreal in Canada, that's a problem because I'm in private practice, but there are individuals who can't get resources through the public system. That's a whole other discussion, but it's definitely been an influx of interest, which I would say is a positive thing from the perspective of people being more open to therapy and understanding that they can benefit from help, but also the level of need is enormous right now. I think in terms of depression, I agree with what Dr. Margulies is saying. Obviously, it depends on the individual and the age group and so many factors. I think that both anxiety and depression have increased, and I'm seeing a huge increase in people having to go off of work, being on short-term disability, that it's impacting their ability to focus, to pay attention, to participate, to do their job properly. And yeah, the isolation has been huge. I also specialize in working with a geriatric population, and that, as you can imagine, has been greatly affected in terms of depression and even cognitive impairment because of the isolation and not having regular cognitive stimulation and social stimulation. So it's been difficult.
Yes, very well said.
So
go ahead, Dr. Margulies, go ahead.
I was going to agree with what Dr. Goodman is saying, in that, you know, we see a specific increase in the need for psychological services and psychotherapy services and a little bit less of there's still an increase, but a little bit less of an increase in the need for psychiatric services and medication services, which I find interesting as well, which points potentially to the fact that the severities of the depressions that we're seeing are still very important and still need treatment, but they're not at the severe level of requiring always psychiatric care.
Well put. Well put. Well, I mean, I'm really looking forward to watching this series. So, Dr. Goodman, how do people register? How do people ensure that they can get online to see these lectures?
So they can go to the TBDJ website, and we have a specific link to the mental health website. It's mentalhealth.tbdj.org. I hope I'm giving it to you correctly, but it is on our flyer. If Mike, you're able to share those.
Yeah, I will. I'll share it in the body of the story and in the video.
The link will be there. There is no need to register this year. You can just go onto the link and it will be a Zoom presentation.
Okay, that's easy. Okay, well, that's good. So thank you both for your time. Good luck. Sounds like a great program. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Pleasure.